Hi everyone, hi teacher. I'm Muhammed Cemil Tümtürk. Today I'm going to talk about Pragmatic, its features and sub-branches. Let's start. Last week, we have mentioned about semantic. We focused on the relationship between words, but pragmatic is what speaker mean by their utterances. It focuses on language and users. They are really different. Let's move on with my outline. I will mention about 5 of them. Invisible meaning. Let's start. What do we mean by invisible meaning? What do we understand by these two pictures? Are they really selling babies? Of course no. Invisible meaning means that there are lots of things that is not mentioned or written. For example, we can easily understand from these two pictures that it's an advertisement, although a word cloth is not written, but we can easily understand the meaning. This is invisible meaning. Let's move on with the context. We look at the old sentences to understand the meaning of word. For example, I need to withdraw some cash from the bank. We can understand that it's a financial institution. But in the other example, some historical places are located along the bank. These are really different meaning, but it's the same word. And this is linguistic context. We call it linguistic context. But there are other contexts. It's a physical context. Physical context, when we see the word bank on the wall, on the picture, we interpret it in terms of a financial institution in that context. It's a physical context. Deixis, it's a word or phrase that points to the time, place, or situation. It's expressed by way of pronouns, demonstrative, adverbs, tense, etc. Didactic expressions, using words such as this or here as a way of pointing with language. For example, we have three deixis: person, spatial, temporal. Temporal means that when we use time expressions, we call it as a temporal deixis. When we use location, for example, here, there, near, that, it's a spatial deixis. When we use him, them, that woman, those men, like that, then we call it person deixis. Let's move on with reference, inference. Inference, it is used to understand what the phrase mentioned in the text or speech is. We use Chomsky, Ahmed, the cat, writer, my friend, the war, he, she, it as a reference. But inference is different from reference. It's additional information used by the listener to create a connection between what is said and what must be meant. For example, can I get your Chomsky? Yes, you can. What do we mean by this sentence, can I get your Chomsky? Chomsky is a science man and he's died. Then what do we mean by Chomsky? Of course, it is inference. It is inferred to a book, not a person. It's a book. Let's move on with anaphora. We introduce something and refer it back. It's really easy. For example, Ali bought a car yesterday. It was magnificent. We need to understand that anaphora refers to back. And what refers to back in this sentence? Of course, it refers to a car. A car, what's a car? A car is antecedent. Antecedent, what's antecedent? It is the first thing that anaphora makes a reference. What's first thing? A car. It, what it refers to back. What is the back it's a car. And there, of course, there are cataphora. It refers to following statement. Anaphora refer back. Cataphora refers to following statement. They are really oppositing. When she came home, Ayşe wanted to eat sandwich. She is cataphora because it refers to following statement. What's following thing is Ayşe. Ayşe is antecedent. Time to practice. After he had received his orders, the soldier left the barracks. What's cataphora? What's anaphora? Of course, he is cataphora and the soldier is antecedent. Let's move with second example. The apple on the table rolled. It had been there for 3 days. The apple is antecedent. It is anaphora. Yes. Let's move on. Presupposition. What's presupposition? If we carefully look at these pictures, we easily can understand what is meant by presupposition. Presupposition is what a speaker assumes is true or known by the listener can be described as a presupposition. For example, she sneezed again. What is the presupposition? We understand that she sneezed before. Let's give another example. Why did you arrive late? What is the presupposition? He or she arrived late. This is presupposition. Politeness. A term often used when we talk about politeness is face. Face is awareness of other person's self-image. We show either respect or disrespect. Politeness is separated two sub-branches: face-treating act, face-saving act. What's face-treating act? Face-treating act something that represents a treat another individual's self-image. For example, if you say, "Give me that paper," it is clear that you use face-treating face because it's a command. Face-saving act, avoidance of the potential threat to person's self-image. For example, if you say, "Can you give me that pencil?" it is clear that you use face-saving act. Of course, there are negative face, positive face. Negative face is the need to be independent to a group. There is no distance. There are really sincere relationship. For example, let's go to the party. When you use this statement, of course, you have really sincere friends and you have a connection between each other. There is no distance. Positive face is the need to be independent a group. There is a distance. Can I ask you something? Of course, when you use these sentences, you have real distance between this person. And I'm really confused between these two titles. We need to change the places. The first one is positive and the second one is negative. Sorry about that. As you can see, understand from picture, the one is negative and the other one is positive face. Speech act. What do we understand by this picture? Of course, we understand two main things. Someone is talking by using gesture or facial expression or performing something. Yes. Speech act is a act as the action performed by speaker with an utterance. For example, when we say "I will be there at 6," we are not just uttering a sentence. Also, we promise something. This is a speech act. Yes, let's move on. Direct speech act and indirect speech act. There are lots of writing. Sorry about that, but I didn't have another way to explain these topics. in terms of direct speech and indirect speech. Direct speech, when an interrogative structure such as did you, are they, can we, is used with the function of question, it is described as a direct speech act. When we don't know something and we ask someone to provide information, we usually produce as direct speech. For example, can you ride a bicycle? What about indirect speech? Whenever one of the structures in the set is used to perform a function other than the one listed beside it on the same line, the result is an indirect speech act. For example, indirect speech act will normally be expressed as a declarative, interrogative, or imperative sentence. So the literal act will normally be a statement, question, or command. One of the best known types of indirect speech act is rhetorical question. Yes. For example, let's give an example. Move is direct or indirect? Of course, it's direct. Could you please sit down? It's request, right? Oh, then it's indirect. Please get out of the way. It is imperative, and then we can say it. It's direct. You are in the way. It's a declarative statement. Then we call it. It's indirect. That is my end of the slide. Thank you for listening to me.